Georgy Zhukov, the only Soviet commander feared by both Hitler and Stalin. He won the bloodiest war in human history. Then his own country tried to erase him. Georgy Zhukov didn't just defeat the Nazis, he broke them. Stalingrad, Kursk, Berlin. Every time Hitler's generals promised total annihilation. Zhukov was the reason they had to explain another catastrophic failure. The Wehrmacht called him the one who won't die. 20 million Soviet soldiers did. Zhukov kept winning. But here's what the victory parades never showed you. While Zhukov was planting the Soviet flag over Hitler's bunker, a file with his name on it was growing thicker inside the Ljubljana, the most feared building in Moscow. Stalin's secret police weren't watching enemies. They were watching him, the man who just saved the Soviet Union. Because Joseph Stalin understood something that Hitler never did. Generals who win wars become men who can take thrones. And in the Kremlin, there was only room for one leader. This is the story of a man trapped between two of the most paranoid dictators in history. One trying to kill him from the outside, the other waiting to destroy him from within. A man who couldn't lose a battle because defeat meant German execution. But who couldn't win too brilliantly either because victory meant Stalin's suspicion. Every metal pinned to his chest was another nail in a coffin being built behind closed doors. Spring 1941, months before the invasion that would kill more people than any event in human history, a 19-year-old courier named Alex walked the marble corridors of NKVD headquarters, the place where names went to disappear. He carried sealed folders every day, confessions, denunciations, death warrants dressed up as paperwork. He had learned not to look, not to think, not to remember. But that morning, his supervisor handed him something different. Thick brown paper, red wax seal, and a name typed across the front that made his stomach drop. Zhukov, not a traitor, not a dissident. One of the most celebrated generals in the entire Red Army. Third Directorate, his supervisor said, "You never opened it. You never carried it. It doesn't exist." Alexei nodded. But as he walked those cold corridors, one question kept clawing at him. Why was the secret police building a case against the man who was about to save them all? That question would haunt Alex for the next 4 years. And the answer would reveal something far more terrifying than any battlefield. To understand why Stalin feared Zhukov, you first have to understand where Zhukov came from. Because nothing about his rise should have been possible. Georgy Konstantinovich Zhukov was born in 1896 in a village so poor it didn't appear on most maps. His father was a cobbler who could barely feed the family. His mother worked the fields until her hands bled. By the time Georgy was 11 years old, he was sent away to Moscow to become a Führer's apprentice. Not because his family wanted him gone, but because they couldn't afford to keep him. He slept in a workshop, learned to stitch animal pelts, and grew up believing that survival was something you earned through endurance, not luck. When the First World War erupted in 1914, Zhukov was drafted into the Russian Imperial Army. He was 18 years old. Within months, he learned a lesson that would define his entire military career. Officers who hesitated got men killed. He watched inexperienced commanders give contradictory orders while German shells tore through the ranks. He saw men freeze in terror, unable to act. And he decided even then that he would never be one of them. If he ever led soldiers, he would make decisions, right or wrong, and he would make them fast. By 1916, Zhukov had been wounded twice, decorated for bravery, and promoted to non-commissioned officer. But something else happened that year that would shape his future. He was caught in a German gas attack. The chlorine seared his lungs, left him coughing blood for weeks, and damaged his hearing permanently. Most men would have been sent home. Zhukov refused. He stayed at the front until the war ended, not out of patriotism, but because he had nowhere else to go. Then came the revolution. When the Russian Empire collapsed and civil war engulfed the country, Zhukov had a choice. Join the whites who wanted to restore the old order or join the reds who promised a new world. He chose the reds not because he was an ideological communist, he wasn't, but because the Red Army offered something the furrier's apprentice had never had before, a path upward. In the chaos of the Civil War, a man with courage and competence could rise faster than at any other time in Russian history. Zhukov rose. By 1923, he commanded a cavalry regiment. By 1930, he commanded a brigade. And by 1937, he had climbed high enough to enter the most dangerous zone in Soviet society. Visibility. Here's what you need to understand about the Soviet Union. In 1937, Stalin had launched the Great Purge, a systematic campaign to eliminate anyone he perceived as a threat. The military was hit hardest of all. In just 2 years, Stalin executed 3 of 5 marshals, 13 of 15 army commanders, and roughly 35,000 officers. The charges were almost always fabricated. Espionage, treason, conspiracy with foreign powers. The evidence was almost always extracted through torture. And the trials, when they happened at all, were theater. Men who had served the revolution their entire lives were shot in basement cells or sent to labor camps in Siberia where they died of cold disease and exhaustion. Zhukov watched colleagues disappear. He attended meetings where empty chairs multiplied week by week. He received phone calls in the middle of the night. Not arrests, not yet, but invitations to explain himself, to account for old associations, to prove his loyalty. Every senior officer knew the same thing. The knock could come at any time.